Maria was a stewardess. During her years on the job, she had all kinds of experiences. Some wonderful, like getting to know different parts of the world that she would not have visited if she didn't have that job. And others not so good, like meeting rude people or flights with a lot of turbulence where she had ended up praying for her life. But without a doubt, no experience was as horrifying as the one she had lived that October 12th. That day, she had a transoceanic flight, which meant spending many hours on a non-stop plane. Despite the tiredness and jet lag that occurred in her body, because she didn't have time to get used to the new schedule, she always remained happy and was friendly and smiling to all the travelers. Besides, the flight was back home. She would finally see her husband after several days on another continent. Although it was fun to discover new places, everything had its downside. She spent many days alone in a hotel with insomnia and boredom, but her vacation was getting closer, and she would enjoy some well-deserved days off. As she walked down the aisle of the plane handing out trays of food, she stared at a woman holding a baby in her arms. For a year, she had felt that her maternal instincts had been triggered. The birth of her first nephew had a lot to do with it. The first time she grabbed him, she realized she wanted to be a mom, but she was waiting to have some more savings before she got pregnant. Every time a baby or toddler passed by her, she couldn't help but stop to cuddle and give him a few words of affection. She went over to the lady who had the baby and asked her if he was asleep. The woman looked at her with an unfriendly face, so Maria offered to bring a blanket to cover the child. The mother, frowning, told her that she didn't need anything. The answer had been blunt, making it clear that she didn't want to be bothered. Maria was used to meeting people of all kinds, and although she thought in her mind how unpleasant that lady had been, she said goodbye with a friendly smile and continued down the hall. That woman to whom she had offered help had treated her like a piece of trash, so when she finished delivering and reached the end of the plane, she commented with her colleagues about the impertinent attitude that lady had had with her. One of the stewardesses told her that something similar had happened to him. When she got on the plane, he tried to help her up with her suitcase, and he'd gotten a shove for being nice and getting close to her. Apparently, the lady was very rude, and it hadn't been just her impression. Several minutes later, Maria and another stewardess made their way down the aisle again, this time to collect the trays and leftover food. Arriving at the side of the lady with the baby, Maria decided to give her a second chance. After all, the baby was not to blame for his mother's behavior. She approached her and told her that she hoped the food had been to her liking. She stared at the baby, who was still with his head down with a blanket on his mother's chest, and told her that if she needed to change his diaper, there was a place in the back of the plane for it. The lady looked at her, clenching her teeth, and grumbled, "I already told you I don't need any help." The stewardess felt annoyed again. She kept walking and watched her every minute, hoping that she would break some rule to get her attention. But the woman barely moved. Not even the baby, who had been asleep since they had taken off. 8 hours had passed, and the mother had not given the little boy a bottle, nor had she changed his diaper. Maria, who had experience with her nephew, knew that a baby as young as a few months woke up hungry every few hours, and if the diaper was not changed, the area could become sore. She knew she was going to get a bad answer again, but she didn't care and decided to go over again to check that the baby was okay. The woman had her eyes closed. She had fallen asleep with the baby in her arms, and the blanket that covered him had shifted a little, exposing his little head. Maria took the opportunity to see the face of the baby, that he must have been 2 months old. His skin was very pale, and his head seemed swollen. In addition, he gave off a bad smell, so she assumed that he had pooped in the diaper, and his careless mother had not noticed. Seeing the poor condition of the baby, she decided to touch the lady's arm a few times and wake her up to warn her. "Excuse me, I think the baby pooped on himself. Do you want me to enable the table to change his diaper?" Maria said with a sweet and kind voice. The woman opened her eyes suddenly, and seeing that her son was uncovered, she quickly covered him again with the blanket. She told her not to bother her anymore, that she didn't need any help. Maria changed her expression. She remembered all her stewardess lessons where they told her that the customer is always right, and that she had to avoid creating a ruckus in the cabin. But that woman was not only creating an irritation on her baby's skin, but she was causing inconvenience to other passengers. Going on a plane for 12 hours with the smell of a dirty diaper was not pleasant for the people around her. She earnestly asked her to change the little boy's diaper for everyone's sake. And the mother began to yell at her, telling her that no one had to give her lessons on how to take care of her son, that if she didn't leave her alone, she would file a complaint when she got off the plane. Maria clenched her fists and strode purposefully toward the front. They were strictly forbidden to discuss with a traveler without the presence and mediation of the cabin manager. So she decided to tell him the whole situation, and they both returned to the lady's seat. The man tried to talk to the baby's mother in the sweetest voice he could. He informed her again, as the stewardess had already done, that they had a place to change the baby's diaper more comfortably, and he begged her to do so to avoid inconvenience to the rest of the plane's crew. The woman, full of anger, replied that she would change her son when she considered it necessary, and told them that she had never been on a plane where she was ordered or told how to take care of her baby. The man, surprised by the woman's reaction, apologized and told her that they did not mean to bother her, but it was her obligation to maintain the hygiene of her son so that the trip was as comfortable as possible for everyone. The woman was getting redder. She told them that her husband was a lawyer and that the first thing she would do when she set foot on land would be to file a complaint against them for the bad treatment she was receiving. The cabin manager and the stewardess looked at each other without understanding anything. Why was that woman putting so many obstacles in the way of simply changing her son's diaper? The easiest thing was to change it and avoid an argument. Plus, the baby had to be very comfortable. If it was a fight of pride, where she didn't want to do it because she didn't agree with them, in the end, she was going to harm her little one's health. The woman didn't stop insulting them and shouting, and meanwhile, the blanket discovered the baby's head again. The smell became even more unbearable, and despite the fact that the cabin lights were dimmed to make it easier for passengers to rest, both the stewardess and her boss could see the little boy's skin tone. He no longer looked pale, but was more of a violet or purple color. Indeed, it could see that the little one was in bad shape. They were horrified looking at him when the mother realized and quickly covered her son. The man didn't intend to move from there until he verified that the child was in good condition. That mother had lost her sanity. He asked the woman to let the child's good health be checked, claiming that it was his obligation to check that all the occupants of the plane were well. The woman put a hand on his chest, grabbed him by the shirt, and told him through clenched teeth that he was not going to touch her son. The man no longer knew how to proceed. He looked at Maria and gestured for her to come with him. They went to the flight deck and decided to report everything that had happened to the pilot. Seeing the seriousness of the matter, he asked the co-pilot for relief and went personally to the lady's seat. The commander approached the mother and with a soft but firm voice introduced himself. He said that he was the captain of the plane, that his colleagues had told him everything that had happened, and that if she refused to follow their instructions, he would be forced to warn the law enforcement agencies of the destination country when the plane landed. The woman, frightened, replied with a trembling voice that she didn't want unknown people to touch her son. Maria wanted to answer, and her manager hit her on the leg to make her shut up. That lady was insinuating that they wanted to take or touch her son, when it had never been like that. The woman obediently replied to the flight captain that she herself would go to the bathroom and change her baby. But she didn't want to undress him in front of others. No one had to see her baby's body without clothes, and she looked defiantly at Maria's manager. This one was left with his mouth open. She was indirectly accusing him of something very serious. The pilot asked Maria to accompany the lady to the bathroom and to leave her alone with the little one so that she could change his diaper. Maria walked behind the woman and was thinking that something was wrong. It was impossible for that baby to be asleep for so many hours, even when they were screaming in the middle of the argument. So while the woman was locked in the bathroom, she decided to spy through a small crack on the side of the door. What she saw left her speechless. The woman undressed the baby, and Maria could see how the child was completely purple and had a large scar across his chest. The little boy didn't move or make any gesture, but it was clear that he was human. He was not a doll. Maria let out a heartbreaking scream, and one of her companions, seeing her so nervous, banged hard on the door for the lady to come out. The stewardess was unable to utter a word. She just cried uncontrollably and screamed. Seeing that the mother didn't open the door, they used a security key and forced it, until after several pushes, they managed to open it and enter. The woman lunged at them, dropping the baby to the ground. She ran down the aisle, but thanks to the help of several passengers, they managed to immobilize her. Maria cried and didn't stop trembling when she saw the corpse of that defenseless little boy. From the cabin, they informed the destination airport to warn of the situation, and they asked that the security forces be waiting. The mother traveled handcuffed and tied in one of the front seats, while the small corpse was placed in a suitcase to try to cover the smell of rot that he gave off. When they got to land, the police checked the baby's body, and when performing the autopsy, they found an unpleasant surprise. They had emptied him from the inside. They had removed all his organs, and inside his sewn-up little body, there was a large amount of drugs hidden. The alleged mother tried to pass illegal substances to the other country using the baby's body. This woman was caught and imprisoned for drug trafficking. But how many other corpses had traveled this way without them realizing it?
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it. And if you want to see more Draw My Life videos, subscribe to our channel. See you on the next episode.